Captain Day thought it was just another ambush. Just another group of alien raiders looking for easy human prey. His disguised warship tore through the Valak's pirates like a storm through paper. But in the wreckage, he found something unexpected. A girl, blue skin, golden eyes, dying in the void. He didn't hesitate. He saved her. Her name was Lyra, the last survivor of a forgotten species. Gentle, beautiful, everything the galaxy had tried to destroy. She spoke of dreams while he carried guns. She sang songs while he planned battles. And somehow, in the cold dark between stars, they found something neither expected. Love. But love in a brutal galaxy comes with a price. When a colony ship screamed for help, they charged into battle. Massive Torvan warriors boarded his ship. He was losing. Ribs cracked. Vision blurred. A killing blow descending. Then Lyra appeared, weapon in hand, eyes blazing, standing between him and death. The cargo hauler Morning Sky drifted through the outer rim trade lanes like a fat, lazy insect begging to be swallowed. At least, that's what the pirates thought. Captain Day sat in the command chair, boots propped on the console, watching the sensors with half-closed eyes. His crew of 12 moved about the bridge with practiced ease, their movements betraying none of the tension coiling in their muscles. "Contact," said Hannah from sensors. 3 ships closing fast. Valak's configuration. They smiled. The Valaks were one of the dozens of raider species that plagued the trade routes. 6-limbed insectoids with a taste for easy prey and a reputation for selling their captives to the slave markets of the Rim. They'd been hitting human ships for months now, growing bolder with each success. Earth's merchant fleet had taken heavy losses, and the galaxy had learned to see humanity as soft targets, weak newcomers to the great expanse of space. "Let them come," they said softly. Standard protocol. The Morning Sky was a Hansen-class freighter, 300 meters of battered hull plating and cargo containers. To any scanner, she looked like a decade-old rust bucket barely holding together. The crew wore civilian clothes, their weapons hidden. Everything about the ship screamed helpless prey. The Valak ships came in fast, their hulls bristling with plasma cannons and boarding tubes. They watched them approach, counting seconds in his head. The raiders sent the standard demand: surrender or be destroyed. Hannah sent back a panicked acceptance, her voice trembling with manufactured fear. The first boarding tube latched onto the Morning Sky's hull with a metallic clang. Then the second. The third. Day stood slowly, straightening his jacket. Around the bridge, his crew did the same, their faces hardening into something very different from frightened merchants. "All hands," they said into the comm. "Spring the trap." What happened next would become legend in 100 systems. The Morning Sky's hull panels fell away like shed skin, revealing weapons batteries that would make a military cruiser jealous. Railguns, missile pods, point defense lasers humanity had learned in their brief time. Among the stars that the galaxy respected only one thing: the ability to bite back. The Valak ships barely had time to react. The Morning Sky's guns spoke with thunder, turning the nearest raider into expanding debris. The second ship tried to break away, but humanity's targeting systems, built by a species that had spent centuries perfecting the art of killing each other, found it instantly. The third ship managed to fire back, but its shots splashed harmlessly against military-grade shields that definitely shouldn't have been on a cargo hauler, but some raiders had already boarded. That was fine. That was part of the plan. They drew his pistol, a heavy slug thrower that most species found hilariously primitive, and headed for the cargo bay. His security team was already there, wearing armor that had been hidden in false panels. The Valaks came through the airlock expecting frightened humans. They found something else entirely. The firefight was brief and brutal. Valak's raiders were dangerous, but they'd grown used to easy victories. Humanity had spent its entire existence fighting itself, and that experience showed. They put 3 rounds through the thorax of a Valix warrior trying to flank them, then moved to the next target without breaking stride. When the smoke cleared, the cargo bay was silent except for the groans of wounded raiders. Day's team had taken down 23 Valix without a single human casualty. He was checking the bodies when Hana's voice crackled over his comm. "Captain, we've got a problem. Found something in the wreckage of the first raider ship. You need to see this." Day made his way to the observation deck, where a section of bulkhead had been converted into a makeshift viewing station. Hana pointed to a piece of debris floating nearby, part of the destroyed Valix ship. Through the transparent section, Day could see a small figure inside what looked like a holding cell, exposed to vacuum by the explosion. "Life signs?" he asked. "Faint. Whatever she is, she's tougher than she looks, but not tough enough to survive vacuum much longer." Day didn't hesitate. "Get me a suit. Hana, you have the bridge." 3 minutes later, he was in space, magnetic boots clanging against the debris as he made his way to the cell. The figure inside was small, maybe 1.5 meters tall, with pale blue skin and dark hair that floated around her face like ink in water. She wore tattered clothing, and her eyes were closed, but as Day approached, they fluttered open. They were large and golden, with vertical pupils like a cat's. She looked at him without fear, just a kind of weary resignation. She'd been a prisoner, Day realized. The Valix had been transporting her somewhere. When they decided to attack his ship, Day activated his suit's magnetic grapple, pulling the entire cell section toward the morning sky. The girl watched him work, those strange eyes tracking his every movement. When he finally got her into the airlock and the atmosphere cycled in, she took a gasping breath and collapsed. He caught her before she hit the deck. She weighed almost nothing, her bones seeming as delicate as a bird's. Up close, he could see that her skin had a faint pattern to it, like scales, but soft as silk. She looked young, though with aliens you could never tell. "Medical," Day called. "I need a medical team in Airlock 3. Unknown species, exposure to vacuum, possible trauma." The girl's eyes opened again as he carried her toward the medbay. She said something in a language he didn't recognize, her voice musical and strange. Then she reached up with a 3-fingered hand and touched his face, as if confirming he was real. "It's okay," Day said, knowing she couldn't understand. "You're safe now." She said something else, and this time he heard his name in the alien syllables. No, not his name. She was trying to say human. She'd recognized him in the medbay. Dr. Kwan looked her over with professional efficiency. "Never seen this species before," he said. "But the basics are similar enough. She's dehydrated, malnourished, and has some old injuries that healed badly. Give her a few days of care, and she should recover." "Can you identify her species?" They asked. Kwan shook his head. "Nothing in the database matches. She might be from one of the uncontacted regions, or maybe a species so rare we haven't recorded them yet. The galaxy's a big place." The girl stayed unconscious for 18 hours. When she finally woke, Day was there, sitting beside her bed. He'd been catching up on reports, but he checked on her every few hours, drawn by something he couldn't quite name. Her golden eyes opened slowly, then focused on him with startling intensity. She sat up carefully, taking in her surroundings. When she saw him, she made a sound that might have been a question. "I'm Day," he said, pointing to himself. "Day, you're on my ship. You're safe." She watched his lips as he spoke, then pointed to herself. "Lyra." Her accent was strange, but the word was clear enough. "Lyra," Day repeated, and she smiled. It transformed her face, making her look younger and less guarded. Over the next few days, they worked on communication. The morning sky had a translation program, but it needed samples of her language to work. Lyra proved to be a quick learner, picking up basic human words with impressive speed. Dave found himself spending more and more time with her, teaching her about the ship, about humanity, about Earth. She was fascinated by everything. The way gravity worked on the ship. The human food delighted her, especially sweet things. She'd never tasted chocolate before, and her reaction made the whole crew laugh. But mostly, she seemed fascinated by Day himself. "Your people," she said one evening, her human words heavily accented but understandable. "They are warriors?" "Sometimes," Day admitted. They were in the observation deck, watching the stars stream past. "We fight when we have to, but we prefer to trade, to build, to explore." Lyra touched the transparent bulkhead, her reflection ghostly in the starlight. "The Valaks took me from my home, killed my family. They said I would bring good price at slave market." Her voice was flat, emotionless. "They said no one would save me. Said my people were forgotten." They felt something cold settle in his chest. "What are your people called?" "Nethri. We live on Nethara, at edge of known space. Small world. Few of us left. We have no weapons, no warships. The big powers ignore us. The raiders see us as easy prey." She turned to look at him. "Like they saw your people, yes?" "Yes," they said. "Until we showed them different." Lyra's smile was sad. "My people cannot show them different. We are not warriors. We are artists, philosophers, dreamers. We have beautiful things, but nothing that kills. Beauty has its own kind of strength," they said. She laughed, but there was no humor in it. "Tell that to the Valaks." Over the following weeks, as the morning sky continued its route through the outer rim, Day and Lyra grew closer. She learned more of his language, and he picked up pieces of hers. She told him about Nethara, a world of crystal cities and singing towers, where her people created art that could make you weep and philosophy that could change how you thought. She'd been a musician, she said, before the raiders came. In return, Day told her about Earth, about oceans and mountains, about the long struggle of humanity to reach the stars, about the wars they'd fought among themselves, the terrible lessons they'd learned about the cost of violence, about why they'd come to space hoping for peace but prepared for war. "You understand," Lyra said one evening. They were alone in the observation deck again, and she stood close enough that he could feel the warmth of her. "You understand what it is to be prey. Your people remember." "We remember," they agreed. "That's why we won't let it happen again. Not to us, and not to anyone else if we can help it." She looked up at him, and something shifted in her expression. "You saved me. Anyone would have." "No." She shook her head, her dark hair floating in the low gravity. "Most would have left me. Most would have said, 'Not my problem, not my species, not my concern.' But you didn't." She reached out and took his hand. Her 3 fingers intertwined with his 5, the contact sending electricity through him. "Why?" Day looked down at their joined hands, at the difference and the sameness. "Because it was the right thing to do." "Or because you are a good man," Lyra said softly. "Because your heart is kind, even though you carry weapons. Because you understand what it means to be alone in the dark." He didn't have an answer for that. Instead, he squeezed her hand gently, and they stood together, watching the stars. But peace never lasted long in the outer rim. 3 weeks after rescuing Lyra, the morning sky received a distress call. A colony ship, headed for a new world, had been attacked by raiders. Not Valaks this time, a species called the Torvan, hulking brutes who took pleasure in destruction. "They're asking for help," Hana said. "The colony ship has families, children. The Torvan are playing with them." Day looked at his crew. They were merchants, officially, but they were also human, and they'd all volunteered for this particular assignment, knowing what it really meant. Earth's merchant fleet was a fiction. Every ship was a Q-ship, a disguised warship waiting to teach the galaxy a lesson. "Set course," they said. "Maximum speed." Lyra found him in his quarters as he was checking his weapons. "You're going to fight. I have to. You can ignore the call. Continue on your route. You've done your part." They looked at her. "Would you have me ignore it?" She was quiet for a long moment. Then she shook her head. "No, that's not who you are." She stepped closer. "But I'm afraid. Afraid you won't come back. Afraid I'll lose you like I lost everything else." He reached out and cupped her face gently. Her skin was cool and smooth under his palm. "I'll come back. You can't promise that." "No," he admitted. "But I can promise I'll try." Lyra rose up on her toes and pressed her lips to his. The kiss was tentative at first, exploring the strangeness of their different physiologies. But then it deepened, and they pulled her close. And for a moment the universe contracted to just the two of them. When they finally broke apart, Lyra's eyes were bright. "Come back to me, Day. I have lost too much already." The morning sky dropped out of faster-than-light travel to find chaos. The colony ship, a massive vessel carrying 10,000 souls, was surrounded by 5 Torvan battlecruisers. The raiders were firing carefully, trying to disable rather than destroy. The Torvan liked their prey alive, at least at first. "They're good," Hana said, studying the tactical display. "Better than the Valaks. This is going to be close." They nodded. "All ships, this is Morning Sky. Transmitting attack plan now." Because the Morning Sky wasn't alone. When Earth had decided to teach the galaxy about humanity, they'd been thorough. A dozen Q-ships had responded to the distress call, all converging on this point in space. Disguised freighters, ore haulers, passenger liners, all of them hiding teeth. The Torvan noticed the new arrivals, but didn't break off their attack. They'd grown used to merchant ships running away. They didn't run toward danger. That was their first mistake. The human ships opened fire as one, their hidden weapons blazing. The galaxy had superior technology in many ways, but humanity had spent billions on research and development, stealing, adapting, and improving everything they could get their hands on. And they had one advantage no other species had. They'd been fighting wars for their entire history. They understood violence in their bones. The lead Torvan ship exploded, caught completely off guard. The others scrambled to respond, but human targeting was devastatingly accurate. Missile swarms filled the space between ships, point defense systems creating webs of laser fire. The Torvan tried to fight back, but they were used to facing helpless prey, not coordinated military strikes, but they were tough and determined. One of the Torvan ships broke through the human formation and launched boarding pods at the Morning Sky. They cursed and headed for the cargo bay again. This time, he knew the fight would be harder. The Torvan came through the airlock like a wave of muscle and fury. They stood 3 meters tall, with 4 arms and hides like armor plate. They roared challenges in their guttural language and charged without fear. Day's security team opened fire, but the Torvan kept coming. 2 of his people went down in the first seconds, crushed by those massive fists. Day fired until his pistol was empty, then drew his combat knife and waded in. It was insane. Suicidal, a human had no business fighting a Torvan hand-to-hand. But Day had been a soldier before he'd been a captain, and he knew tricks that species who'd never fought each other couldn't imagine. He used his smaller size, his speed, the Torvan's own strength against them. His knife found gaps in their natural armor, and he moved like water, never where they expected. Still, it wasn't enough. More Torvan poured through, and Day's team was being overwhelmed. He took a blow that cracked ribs and sent him flying. As he struggled to rise, he saw a Torvan warrior looming over him, raising an arm to deliver a killing strike. Then Lyra was there. She moved like nothing Day had ever seen. her small form darting past the Torvin's guard. She had something in her hand, a piece of equipment from the engineering bay, modified into a crude weapon. She drove it into the Torvin's throat, and the giant collapsed, choking. "You said come back." Lyra shouted at him, her voice fierce. "I will not let you break your promise." Together, they fought. Lyra's speed and Day's experience combined into something greater than either alone. She covered his blind spots, and he protected her from blows she couldn't avoid. The Torvin, used to dominating through pure strength, couldn't adapt to this new dynamic. When the last raider fell, the cargo bay was a mess of bodies and blood. Day and Lyra stood back to back, both breathing hard. Through the hull, they could feel the vibrations of the ship's guns still firing. "You shouldn't have come," Day said. "You could have been killed. So could you." Lyra touched his face, checking for injuries. "We protect each other, yes? That is what this means?" He pulled her close, ignoring the pain in his ribs. "Yes, that's what it means." The battle ended an hour later. The Torvin broke off and fled, their ships crippled and their boarding parties destroyed. The colony ship was safe, and the human Q-ships had suffered only minor damage. But more importantly, word would spread. The galaxy would learn that humanity didn't just defend themselves, they defended others. In the aftermath. As the morning sky limped toward the nearest station for repairs, they found Lyra in the observation deck. She was looking out at the stars, her expression thoughtful. "I was wrong," she said as he approached. "I said my people have nothing that kills. But we have something else." She turned to face him. "We have stories. We have music. We have philosophy that can change minds. Maybe that is our weapon." "I don't understand," they said. Lyra smiled. "Your people came to space expecting to be prey. But you weren't. You fought back, and now the galaxy fears you. But fear is not the same as respect. Fear can turn to hatred, to alliances against you." She took his hand. "My people can tell your story. We can spread the truth that humanity fights not for conquest, but for protection. That you are not monsters, but guardians. Words and music can change hearts in ways weapons cannot." They considered this. An alliance? The Nethri and humanity? More than an alliance. Lyra stepped closer. A partnership. You give us protection, and we give you something more valuable. We give you a voice in the galaxy. We show the other species who you really are. And what do we get out of this personally? Day asked, though he already knew the answer. Lyra's smile turned shy. That depends. Do you wish for me to stay on your ship? I do, Day said without hesitation. I want you to stay. Not just because of alliances or politics. I want you to stay because, he paused, searching for words. Because when I'm with you, the universe feels less empty. She laughed, the sound like music. That is good answer. She kissed him again, and this time there was no hesitation, no uncertainty. I will stay. I will travel with you, see the stars, and tell our story to anyone who will listen. Our story, they repeated. Humanity and the Nethri. Warriors and dreamers. Together, Lyra said. Always together. 3 months later, the morning sky docked at Nethra. Lyra had insisted on returning home to see what remained of her people after the raiders had left. Day had agreed immediately, and he brought 6 other Q-ships with him. What they found was a wounded world trying to heal. The crystal cities were damaged but not destroyed, and the Nethri who remained were working to rebuild. When Lyra stepped off the ship, her people surrounded her, crying and singing in their musical language. She'd been presumed dead, and her return was a miracle, but she didn't stay long in the crowd. She pulled away and gestured for Day to follow. Together, they walked through the crystal streets to a tower that still stood intact. Inside, the walls were covered with art paintings and sculptures and holographic installations, that took Day's breath away. "This is what we are," Lyra said. "This is what the Raiders wanted to destroy. Not for profit, but because beauty threatens those who have only ugliness inside them." Day looked around at the art, understanding for the first time what Lyra's people had lost, but also what they still had. "We'll make sure no one threatens this again. Humanity will protect Nathara, and Nathara will remember humanity," Lyra said. "We will write songs about the merchants who were war warriors. We will tell the story of how Earth came to the stars not to conquer, but to defend. And we will make sure the galaxy knows the truth." She took his hand, their fingers intertwining naturally now. "And I will stay by your side as you journey through the stars. I will be your voice, and you will be my protector. Together, we will show the galaxy what it means when two different peoples choose to stand as one." They pulled her close, kissing her under the light of a strange sun. Around them, the crystal towers sang in the wind, and for the first time in months, Lyra's people heard music again. Not the music of mourning, but of hope. The galaxy had learned that Earth's merchant ships carried a surprise for raiders. But they would learn something else too, that humanity didn't just fight for themselves. They fought for anyone who needed protection, for anyone who couldn't fight back. And somewhere in the depths of space, on a dozen different worlds, other species took notice. The strong had always preyed on the weak. But now there was something new in the galaxy, a species that remembered what it was like to be prey, and had decided that no one else should suffer the same fate. In his quarters on the morning sky, Day held Lyra close as they drifted through the space between stars. She was teaching him one of her people's songs, a melody about hope and new beginnings. His voice was rough compared to hers, but she didn't seem to mind. "You sing like warrior," she teased. "All strength, no grace." "I'll leave grace to you," Day said, kissing her forehead. "I'll stick with what I'm good at." "And what is that?" "Protecting the people I love." Lyra's smile was brighter than any star. "Then we are well matched, you and I, for I am very good at loving people worth protecting." They stayed like that for a long time. Two beings from different worlds who'd found something unexpected among the stars. Not just survival, but connection. Not just safety, but love. And in the cargo bays below, hidden weapons waited silently, ready for the next time someone mistook mercy for weakness. Because that was humanity's gift to the galaxy. They'd learned to hope for peace, but prepare for war. To extend a hand in friendship while keeping the other on their weapons. The morning sky sailed on through the endless night, carrying dreams and firepower in equal measure. Proof that sometimes the best guardians are those who remember what it means to need guarding. And sometimes the greatest love stories begin not with a meet-cute, but with a rescue, a battle, and two people from different worlds choosing to face the universe together.